Deadlines, ticking clocks, and failure. Something I'm well acquainted with in my life. I don't particularly like deadlines, but I continue to give myself deadlines anyways. And so I did it again this week. I wanted to get this out on time, and it didn't quite happen. And what happened, though, was kind of interesting because my wife finally kind of reminded me of how I should treat this. And then I remembered the 4 things that I usually do, or at least that I've learned to do, to handle situations like this. So if you think you might want to learn a little bit about it, stick around. I'm Michael Cole, and welcome to my world. So you may ask, what exactly happened to me this week that is so tragic that I'm dealing with deadlines, ticking clocks, and failure? I had an episode all planned out, and I was working on it, and on Friday night, I had the outline probably like 95% of the way done. But it ended up in the end, it kind of wasn't finishing, right? And started getting into late into the afternoon, right before dinner. And of course, I started tightening up a little bit because I'm sitting there going, well, I've got my deadline of Monday. So what does this mean if I can't even get the outline finished here? What's going to happen after that? Have you ever had that? It's like your backside just kind of ratchets up a little bit. Things are not going to work out and it's all going to be a failure. I says, let me have some dinner. So I sat down with my wife and had dinner. And then I came back in here in the evening, and I was at least going to get that outline done, right? If I wasn't going to be able to shoot, I was going to get the outline done. But the more I sat here at my desk, it was hilarious. I still didn't want to do it. It just wasn't there. It was crazy. So of course I pull out my phone and I'm looking at news, which, as you could tell with the news nowadays, how tragic all of that is that I really didn't want to work on my stuff. Finally, I did the smart thing and I went out and talked to my wife and I says, oh man, I can't believe that this stuff is going on. And so she, being the smart one of the family, she says, you know what, just don't hurt yourself with this thing. She says, just don't worry about the deadline and just find the joy in this thing. Whatever you want to do, just find the joy. And in that, first of all, those are 3 pieces that are great if you're doing anything like this, if you're being creative or up against a deadline. But it kind of like reminded me of there's actually 4 things that I've kind of learned for a while now. And I've been trying to do them on every project, but as it happened here again, have you ever had that before where you kind of know what you should be doing, but you forget? You forget really bad. It's like each time it happens, you just forget. Now, these 4 things are not how to hit a deadline, but they're how to deal with all the fear and the tightening and the stopping that comes a lot of time from the deadline and the ticking clock. Okay? So, without a further ado, tip number 1, and this one gets me really ticked off. Tip number 1, because I don't follow it myself. Tip number 1 is no abuse. As soon as those thoughts come up where you're sitting there telling yourself, oh man, I can't make it. I suck. I'm never going to do this. I'm a complete failure or anything like that. Stop it immediately. Or I'm going to jump through this camera and throttle you. After I throttle myself a couple more times. What'll end up happening is you're going to tighten yourself up first of all. So the next time a deadline comes up, you're going to remember those thoughts. And you're doing that because of number 2, you're reinforcing some crap beliefs that you already have inside your head. Because any of those thoughts that you have, like, I can't do it, I'm not going to be able to make this, I'm a failure, etc., they're just crap beliefs that you hold up inside your head. And believe me, I'm one to know because they sit there and they reside up here inside my head. God, and they're such a pain to get rid of. And just when you think you get rid of them, they come on back. But anyways, we'll deal with that in another video. Don't worry about that because those things are going to go. Tip number 2. Number 2 is trust yourself. Whatever you do, trust yourself. And I'm talking about that little voice inside you that's saying, it's not quite time. It's this, something's off. Something's not working. Because when I sat down here on Saturday night and I came in and I was going to go up against that wall. I was going to beat my head bloody. I was going to hit that deadline. I was going to finish that script all the way so I could shoot on Sunday and then edit on Sunday and still make the deadline on 10 a.m. on Monday. But yet something was still just not working. The problem here, though, is that what I ended up doing was I started focusing on the deadline and not the process. I wasn't playing with it. I wasn't having fun. I focused on the deadline, and of course there everything started shutting down. And then I didn't trust the voice inside my head. So tip number 2 is trust yourself, please. Tip number 3 is permission. And for me at least, I got to give myself permission to be able to miss the deadline, which I know, it completely goes against everything that everybody says, all the best advice in the world, that you got to hit your deadlines, you got to get that stuff done, blah, 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 blah. Now, I'm not saying to forget deadlines altogether. Believe me, I am not, because I like deadlines. And I just saw a video just recently by Mary Spender. She has it out there. It's called Discipline Equals Freedom. It's a great video. I'll link to it down below. And it comes from a quote by this guy by the name of Jocko Willink. And I'll link to his site also. But in Mary's video, it was great. And she talks about how she used that quote, again, discipline equals freedom, to really double down on everything, get the things done that she needed to. And her channel is a success right now. She's really pleased with everything. And I don't doubt that. I would love to follow that myself. But there are times where I need to follow my own advice, particularly in creative things, when I'm writing, when I'm doing anything. If you give yourself the permission to miss a deadline, a lot of times what ends up happening is you give yourself permission to succeed in a different way. It takes the pressure off and allows you to perhaps find a different way to do things, which leads us directly into tip number 4. The final one. 4. Yes. Tip 4 in the end is play. Be playful. Pivot to something playful. And I can't tell you how many times this has really helped me out. It's like whenever you're banging up against the wall and nothing's working out on this particular thing, again, that inner voice is trying to tell you, flip to something else where you're actually going to have fun. You're going to be a lot more productive. And really what ends up happening with this is why you're more productive is because instead of stopping yourself against something that is not working or you shouldn't be working on at that point, you start to get productive because you're taking action and you're actually making something happen. And that's exactly what I did then. Once I talked to my wife about this whole episode or the previous episode that didn't work out, once I gave myself the permission to not make the deadline, the pressure came off, and then suddenly I kind of flipped over and I says, well, that's kind of interesting. So I wonder if what I'm really supposed to do for this episode is what I'm going through with this whole craziness of being stopped. And sure enough, that's what it is. And I had a ball doing it. It kind of fell out pretty easily. Now, I had some other issues with doing this particular episode on, working with deadlines. My wife and I had to get a few other things done, so everything got really delayed, which is, again, was a real test against my thing of wanting to get things done and feeling like I'm not going to get it done. But I worked through that again, right? I'm following my own advice, sometimes a little bit later than what I need. But in the end, it worked out okay. I'm getting this done. I've got an extra episode. The episode that I'm going to be doing is coming next week, and everything worked out kind of okay. I'm a little worse for wear because I didn't remember all the things, but yet again, now I remembered them, and I can turn it into an episode. So, again, remember the 4 things, right? So if you're up against deadlines and all of that kind of stuff like that, no abuse. Take it easy on yourself. Do not turn a deadline into a reason to abuse yourself. 2, trust that inner voice, right? That's telling you that maybe not right now is not the time to finish this particular thing. Give yourself permission to actually not hit the deadline. And that will probably free you up enough so that you can then do number 4, which is flip over to play and find another way to actually succeed in maybe making the deadline. I didn't make my deadline, but maybe you will. And I know in the future what's going to end up happening, of course, is the more I do this, the more confident I'm going to get, and the better off it's going to be, and I'm not going to have any problems anymore with deadlines, right? Yeah, no, I think I will. And the ticking clocks, and the fear, and everything else. But at least now I've written down these my four tips for myself, and I'll stick them up on the wall over there, and I'll remember them forever. Anyways, so hopefully you enjoyed my pain and suffering and beating my head against the wall and feeling all those crazy whacked out things. And hopefully you maybe learned a couple things that may help you. And if you do, I'm really happy for that. And if you enjoyed it, why don't you hit there and smack the subscribe button, hit the like button while you're down there, and why don't you turn on notifications so the next time I come out with something, which should hopefully be a little faster than this, you're going to find out about it quick. Okay. Thanks so much for stopping by, and love ya.